Next question is Tommy says, when creating location pages for a local service business, would you make a location page for the location the business is located in? The business already has the primary location in the footer, about, etc., and ranks on page 2 for keywords in the primary location on a general service page. Would it be overkill to create a location for it too and be duplicate content? Would appreciate your advice. Thanks. No, if it's a single location site, you don't need a location page for it. The only time that I would recommend having location pages is if it's a multi-location business, right? Because then you'd have one location is typically going to be like a headquarters, right? Like the main location or the primary location, the first location, whatever you want to call it. And so that would be like what I would, so for example, if I were to build a lead gen site that was optimized for one location, but then I decided, because let's say it was really successful and I decided to start expanding locations for that brand, then what I would do is I would make that, the primary location would be the first location, and I would make that as kind of like the name, address, and phone number for the primary location would be like the organization, essentially the main location for that multi-location business. And then I would create separate location pages for each individual or additional location, I should say. That's how I would do it. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend creating a location page on a site that is optimized for one location because that's kind of, Department of Redundancy department. You know what I mean? So I would recommend that you don't do that. You don't need to do that. But what you can do is you can split out like suburbs, or, I'm not sure how you've got your site structured, but you can create geo posts. That's what I call it. But they're locally optimized posts for localities within your service area. If it's a service area business, I'm just assuming that it is. But it could be a storefront business, in which case you wouldn't even really need to do that either. But for service area businesses like contractors, which is what I do, then what I would do is have the one location, as the only location, but then I would start optimizing content in what's called geoposts, or what I call geoposts, which would be optimizing content for like the suburbs, the adjacent areas that, and then I would, kind of optimize. My blogger does all this, but she'll go out and pull in like points of interest, historical, references, things like that are relevant to each individual, suburb or municipality or whatever that I'm trying to expand into. And then she'll, produce some content, included about whatever products or services the company offers. And you can start to blog that way so that you can start really kind of expanding your service area footprint, so to speak. But you don't need to have a separate location page for the location if it's a one location business. It just doesn't make sense to do that, in my opinion. Any other input on that, guys?
Let me just add, there's no such thing as duplicate content. And we see this all the time. No such thing is not happening. Now, as far as would it be overkill? Bradley, you answered that perfectly. The advice is, look, when looking at content, is whether you've given the content proper attribution. That's all that matters. Because if you haven't, then let's say if your G site is really strong, it might outrank your money site. That's the only problem you're going to run into. But if you have proper attribution, if Google understands where the master copy of the content resides, then there is no problem. There's only problems if you're running like duplicate titles, duplicate descriptions, and things like that. But we've literally, you only change location on content and run the same, like 15,000 more than that pages of the same content except the location, and it works. It's working right now. I'm about to show you how it's working right now when we get to that question. There is no such thing as duplicate content. You got the master copy, and then you have copies of that content. Proper attribution takes care of any duplicate content issues, and so does canonical. If you canonicalize correctly, you're fine, you're good to go.
There you go. Let me unpause the screen for a minute if I can find it. Okay.